Hey everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
It is the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm CJ Baumgartner, joined as always by Ian Rivers. And Ian, we got a lot happening this week, mainly because it's homecoming week on the Bemidji State campus.
Absolutely. It is homecoming week. There's a lot going on, and I'm excited for a homecoming football game against Northern State, especially. Maybe our chance to get our first win on the season and get a little revenge for last season where Northern State took down the Beavers in a bit of an upset fashion. So this would be a great start to the win column for the Beavers this week.
Yeah, exactly. And this, by the way, is the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Association. Of course, they're doing a lot of great stuff for homecoming week. We're going to talk about that in just a quick second, as well as something that we're going to be doing with the Beaver Banter podcast for homecoming. So just be sure to go check that out a little bit later in the podcast. So stick around for that. Ian, first, let's talk about football. You brought them up. Really felt like they had an opportunity to get their first win of the season. And by the way, a continued change at quarterback. We talked about that on last week's show, Ian, about how, hey, Bemidji State, are you going to find that quarterback? Are you going to be able to get him some momentum? And even if this season isn't going to be anything, at least get him some momentum. That way, going into 2026, you feel like you have your signal caller and he's battle tested and ready to roll and things like that. And in a blanking on the score, was it 28-21 loss?
Yeah.
28-21 loss to Minot State in Minot. The Beaver Battle was lost. The Beaver War still is yet to be seen. But Ian, I think overall, we'll talk about the game in a second, but just overall, it's just a bummer to go 0-5 now on this season. And really just that one was one that, this has been a couple games this season now where it's like, you should have found a way to come away with that one. It's frustrating.
Yeah. And honestly, like, it is frustrating. CJ, the last time this team lost 5 games in a season, postseason combined with regular season, whatever, 2014, I believe they went 3-8.
Wow.
The year before I stepped on campus. So it's been over a decade since we've seen this much in the loss column for the Beaver football team, which is great. And if this is just a substitute and it's 1 year and a blip on the radar,
this is just an aberration. Yeah. Like this isn't
going to be fine. Like
we're not trying to say the program is cooked at all. That's not what we're trying to say. Yeah.
But it's disappointing, especially when you feel like this team, even in a down year, has an opportunity to be 2-3 right now, at the very least. That game against Minot State, if the offense can do anything in the second half, they probably are able to win that game. And then this one, I really did think they had it. I mean, it was a close game down to the end. I can't remember exactly how much time was left in the game. Well, I can find out actually really quick here. It was, a minute, like under 2 minutes left in the game. And the first, if we want to talk about how Bart Mechanics played, I mean, I thought he played really well for 58 minutes of the football game. And, it was a pick 6 right there at the end. The Beavers get a good stop on defense. I believe they got a shank of a punt from the Minot punter and great field position to, try to drive into field goal range and try to kick a field goal for the win. And it was, I think, first play, pick 6. You can chalk it up to freshman, first collegiate start. That's fine. But it still can't happen necessarily. It stinks, but it's a learning opportunity. And then the Beavers have another opportunity to drive down the field and try to tie him or probably go for 2 and win it if they were able to score. And it's just a weird pass outside, like it was an out route across the field. It was just the longest 4-yard pass you've ever seen, or however long it was. And it ended up actually getting returned for a touchdown as well, but negated by a holding penalty. And all Minot State had to do was kneel out the clock. But yeah, overall, I mean, 21 for 29, 196 yards and a touchdown. And those 2 picks are obviously going to be the big talking point. And they stink. It wasn't a very good time to throw 2 interceptions, but at the end of the day, I think he played pretty well for his debut for the first 58 minutes. So I don't want to take anything away from him. The Beavers also ran the ball pretty well. Connor Carver, 8 attempts for 101 yards. Isaiah Tisdale, 12 attempts for 72 yards. And McAninch himself had 4 attempts for 52 yards. So they were doing everything they could to stay in this game. It stinks they couldn't come out with the win because I think they played pretty well, all things considered, against a more difficult opponent like this. Yeah, Minot State was 0-4. But this version of Minot State is better than the version of Minot State we were seeing half a decade ago, and so it stinks to lose. Volleyball and soccer will have some opportunities to try to even the score and take the lead in the Beaver Battle, or the Beaver War, I should say, over the course of this weekend coming up here. But yeah, it's just disappointing, especially when it feels like it's in your grasp there and to have it ripped away right at the end. But, what can you do?
Right, exactly. Again, defense, I know that they've had a tough time kind of getting some momentum, and it's not an easy opportunity when you have to go against a triple option offense. That's a lot of basically being technically sound, staying in your lane, doing all your role kind of things. And yeah, you gave up a few scores, but at the end of the day, you put your team in a position to win, and even special teams as well, kind of having that opportunity. Again, a little bit more of luck, but having the shanked punt and things like that go in your direction. And yeah, again, it's, sometimes not all interceptions are created equally. Sometimes it's a mistake. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's the wide receiver didn't get to the depth that they wanted and the quarterback was expecting him to be there, or, whatever. Sometimes it's just the corner makes a really good play and sniffs out where the play is happening as it's coming and just kind of reads it. And there's not much you can do about it. So, it is what it is. And it's unfortunate that the game had to end in that way. But like you said, there's some things that Bemidji State is doing where, again, I think we're all ready to wave the white flag on any kind of aspirations postseason for this team. That's just unfortunately the way this thing's going. But there still is a way to get enjoyment out of this Bemidji State Beaver football team. There still is a way to kind of watch this season and plan for the future. Because as you mentioned a few moments ago, Ian, this team, this coaching staff, these guys are too good to just be bad now. Like, this is a weird year. You chalk it up to that. A couple breaks didn't go your way. You're trying to fill some talent, and sometimes it just takes longer than a year to refill those positions, and we'll be patient with that. So yeah, Bart McAninch gets the start at quarterback, his first career start. Had, believe, his first career touchdown pass last week against Augustana, but still got another one in the game against Minot State. And also not just that starting quarterback, but Connor Carver, not last year, he played a little bit kind of as the gadget quarterback. Now it feels like he's just kind of become a gadget player, whether he's gotten rushes or whether he's been put out wide in the slot. Like, it really does feel like maybe if Carver isn't going to be this team's quarterback, he's too talented of a player to just kind of pigeonhole into one spot, and they're really trying to get him out there and do a bunch of things to get their offense going. And for a good chunk of the game, it certainly was working.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to bring that up too, Carver's just too athletic of a human being to put on the sideline if you're not going to use him at quarterback. And they're using him a little bit of a Tyler Warren role. If you remember him at Penn State last year, now with the Indianapolis Colts, he does everything on the field. I mean, he took a handoff from Daniel Jones this week, and I'm sure we're going to see Carver doing some of that over the course of the season. And it's exciting. You got a player of his size and his ability. You got to try to use him in any way possible. Of course, 100 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So he did plenty in this game in the backfield and out wide. And, I don't think he had a catch in the game, but he did have a target, I remember, at one point in the game. One other thing I did want to touch on too, we talked about last week, getting off to a fast start would be huge and making Minot State play a brand of football that they're not comfortable with. And the Beavers just really didn't do that. Minot, I believe, scored on their first drive of the game, and they never trailed in this game. And, Carson Chrisman, Minot State quarterback, threw 3 pass attempts, completed none of them for 0 yards and 0 touchdowns on the day.
Triple option will do that.
He's pulling his best Jalen Hurts impression, that's they're winning games and they don't care how it comes. But yeah, it's disappointing. It's a disappointing loss. I mean, you tell us 4 years ago we're going to lose to Minot State here coming up in a couple of years. It's like, what? What are you
to go 0-5? And it's like,
and to go 0-5, but what
it just goes to show the success of this program that we look at that and we're like, this is just whatever. the good news is there's enough people in place. The people in place are still here. It still is going to be good.
Yes.
It's just use this year as a transition. We talk about it even too at the play calling position with Coach Hine. Like, this is his first year as offensive coordinator, installing an offense, new playbook, new quarterback. You have some positions that you're still trying to figure out. You're just taking a step back this year. Now, would you have hoped that maybe you would have taken this big of a step back and maybe you find a way to win the Minot State game and you find a way to win the Minot games? Of course. But still, you're in the spot. This is the reality. Bemidji State still is a way to bring some entertaining football. There still is things that they can do because now it's kind of rebuilding. Who are the players that on the field you look at and go, okay, all right, like this is going to be something coming up for the future. Like, who are we going to expect to look on? And that's why looking at whether it's Carver, whether it's McInich, whether it's any other position on the field, seeing how they're going to develop over the years will be really, really fascinating. So that's kind of the way to view Bemidji State football this year. It's just the way it goes. And we'll see what they can do because they have a homecoming football game here on Saturday where, despite how bad the season's going, it still will feel really good to jump in Lake Bemidji on Saturday.
Yeah, got to find a way to take down Northern State. Not necessarily going to be easy. Nothing's really been easy, and I don't think anything will be for the rest of the season for this team. But it's an opportunity to get in the win column. Northern State, I believe, is sitting right around where they normally are, which is pretty middle of the pack in the NSIC. I think they're the team right now that's benefiting from an NSIC North that is not very competitive. They are currently sitting 3-1 overall on the season, 1-0 in the division, and 3-1 in the conference. So they haven't played an out-of-conference game yet. I don't know if they will. Some teams don't. But, yeah, it's going to be a tough opponent. You're at home. That will benefit you a little bit, if nothing at all. But, yeah, I'm interested to see, how this goes because the Beavers are the only winless team in the conference to this point. So that is definitely not something that I was expecting to see when the season started.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. And there's an opportunity here against Homecoming to do it. There will be a little bit of a buzz, even though the record isn't where you want to be. Homecoming always does provide a little bit of juice. And it'll be very fascinating to see if Bemidji State can again jump in that lake. I always remember that Homecoming game, I believe it was in 2018 when they got down to USF and it was like 26-6 or something along those lines where it's just like, man, this is not our day. And looks like we're going to get run out of the building on Homecoming, and Bemidji State ends up completing the comeback. They win the game on Bemidji State gets a touchdown, and instead of going for the tie, Coach Bolte goes for the 2-point for the win. Bemidji State gets it. They go into the lake, and it was just a really, really awesome homecoming game. I don't know if anything like that'll happen. I think we just prefer Bemidji State gets a lead and hangs on. But, I think it'll be it's to say that anything can happen on those homecoming days, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, best of luck to the football team, and there's going to be plenty of action on campus this weekend. Not basketball, but football, volleyball, and soccer all at home. There's plenty of homecoming activities, so I'm sure everybody on campus is having a blast right now. Homecoming week is always super fun up there.
Yeah. Exactly. Homecoming week is great. It's an awesome thing to have happen. And a lot of just, again, everything kind of all happening at once for Bemidji State. Plus, this is the football game will be the offensive coordinator Jordan Hine revenge game, ? With obviously he was the OC of Northern last year.
Yeah.
So Bemidji State wants to get revenge on a loss from last year, but also he was the offensive coordinator last year for Northern. So that'll be it'll be interesting to see how that. I don't quite know how the revenge game math quite works, but I think
especially because we lost. So for him, it's not revenge,
right? And is it revenge for them because he was their offensive coordinator last year and he's there? And
I don't know.
There's a lot of things playing at once. It's just cool to say revenge game. It just it's that faux chip on your shoulder that every athlete has, where Tom Brady every year is like, people doubt me. It's like, who is doubting you? Stop doing this. So anyway, Bemidji State hopefully having an opportunity to come away and a win would be very good and welcome sight for homecoming. Ian, as we talk about homecoming, just want to remind you too about this podcast, this great sponsor, the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. And once a Beaver, always a Beaver, the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation is here to keep that green and white pride going strong for its 50,000 graduates around the world. From scholarships that open doors for students to events that bring BSU alumni and friends together, you can get connected, give back, and leave a legacy at Bemidji State. Whether you're a proud BSU grad, a local supporter, or just love cheering on the Beavers, come be a part of the action at bsualumni.org. That's bsualumni.org. bsualumni.org. And Ian, I think something else we need to mention when it comes to the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation is also they are having on game day for homecoming this Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. out on the Decker Hall lawn. It's the game day experience, which is just a bunch of things happening. Here's what it says on their website. You can join them in the celebrating Bemidji State homecoming by participating in their third annual game day experience as part of their annual Community Appreciation Day series. It offers a unique opportunity for Bemidji area businesses and organizations to engage with the community, showcase their products and services, and capitalize on the festive atmosphere. It's a free event for community members to just come and check out. And we are going to have a little bit of a presence there as well. So I know you have some conflicts. You're not going to be able to make it, but I'll be there kind of representing the Beaver Banter podcast. And I know we got some special kind of content that we're going to try and put out there, whether it is a full podcast or maybe just some kind of stuff to put on social media on the various YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff pages. We're going to be going there as well. So a lot of stuff happening on homecoming, and you have a chance to talk with us a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, like CJ said, I just not able to get up there. I live just a little bit too far away to make anything super convenient, especially when I already have conflicting plans that are pretty immovable. But unfortunately, and fortunately, half of us will be there, and that's good. CJ's pulling his weight, and I'm just anchoring behind, trying to sync the podcast as always.
Hey, we'll flip flop next week, so you can pull us up. I'll bring us down.
I'm sure
we trade off every week. Actually, that's kind
right.
of our agreement. So there's a lot of stuff happening again for homecoming. You mentioned women's soccer, Ian. Women's soccer had a road trip over the last weekend. Just let us know what happened.
Yeah, a couple of games against Augustana on Friday. That game ended in a 0-0 draw. Unfortunately for the Beavers, they could not break the pressure. I mean, this was a really even game. I got the privilege to watch most of this game. I think I caught the final like 60-ish minutes of it. And I think the Beavers played pretty well. If you look at basically any metric in this game, you know, BSU 4 shots in the first half, Augie 4 shots in the first half, BSU 5 shots in the second half, Augie 5 shots in the second half. BSU had 5 shots on target, Augie had 6. It was a really close game. I thought BSU played pretty aggressively. The fouls were the big discrepancy. BSU had 10, Augie had 2. It might have been a little bit of a home whistle there. I'm not sure. Not trying to throw anything out there, but I thought it was a pretty good game to come away with that 1 point from, you know, getting a draw on the road against a team that's sitting pretty comfortably in the top 4 right now and probably will be in that hunt. So to go on the road and take a point away from Augustana, I thought that was pretty good. Unfortunately, they weren't able to follow it up with another draw or a win even in Wayne State on Sunday. They ended up losing that one 1-0. Goal scored by Abby Evers for the Wildcats in the 40th minute of the game, or 41st minute technically of the game. And BSU really dominated this one. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch this one, but 20 shots to 6 for the Beavers was the advantage, 11 on target. And unfortunately, the one shot that was on target for the Wildcats ended up beating the goaltender and or goalkeeper, I should say. It's soccer. And that's just the way these sports work. You know, we talk about it in hockey all the time. BSU kind of makes a living on that sometimes, how they just, you know, they don't get a lot of shots at the net, but the ones they do when they win games, sometimes they're just good shots and they beat the goldtender.
A little bit greasy goals is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, the Beavers only come away with 1 point from this weekend, and that leaves them down in a pretty log jammed standings. Right now, it's obviously early in the season. It's kind of hard to break free and break away from anything, but technically the Beavers are in 6th right now, tied for 5th. I don't know how the tiebreakers work this early in the season. I'm not sure that we have too many great tiebreakers when
It's a
most teams
four-way
have only
tie
played.
for 5th place in the conference.
Yeah. So, got an opportunity here though to pick up another couple of points. You're at home. You've got a game coming up on Friday. I believe they play UMary. CJ, is that correct? Yep. Friday at 6 p.m. UMary, and then Sunday at 1 against Minot State. Minot, obviously, one of the bigger rivals for women's soccer, especially. That's been one where these two teams have really gone back and forth over the last 4 or 5 years, especially that we've been doing the Beaver Banter podcast. And they currently are sitting in that tie with Bemidji State at 7 points. UMary, that's really where you've got to make sure you get 3 points. They've only got 2 points on the season in the conference, sitting at 2-3-2 overall. So that's really where you want to make sure you get 3 points, because you've got a tough game coming up against Minot State on Sunday. If you can come away with this 6-point weekend here, that's going to be really, really good. Defend your home territory. That would be 12 points out of 12 at home for the Beavers so far. And then, you got to go on the road the next weekend to St. Cloud State and Minnesota State. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's what makes this weekend even more important, especially if you want to try to fight not only to stay kind of in that hunt for the NSIC title in the regular season, but at least to get home field advantage in the NSIC playoffs. So big games this weekend for the soccer team. Looking for some more goal scoring. Unfortunately, they weren't able to break into that column this weekend. And when you don't score a goal, you kind of put your limit at, 2 points on the weekend if you're able to come away with a couple 0-0 draws. But it wasn't for a lack of trying in that second game. They put like 29 shots on up, I guess I should say, this weekend. Not all of them hit the target, but, about 15 of those did. About half of them were on target. So they were trying. It just it wasn't able to find the back of the net, unfortunately. So maybe that means that the dams will open. The Beaver dams will open this weekend, and the goals will come flooding through.
Yeah, it's revenge for the Beaver Battle last week. So a chance to try and even that series up will be really good. And yeah, we talk about the goal scoring for Bemidji State last weekend, or like on last show, where they had 4 goals in 2 games, and now they had no goals over the last weekend. So an opportunity for the offense to get back on track. I think really, the offense will come and go, but I think the biggest thing that keeps me feeling good about this Bemidji State women's soccer team is the fact that defense, man, is right there where it needs to be and right there where they historically have been. So as long as they can find their footing offensively, this team is going to be just fine, I think. So,
yeah.
So let's roll on from women's soccer. Let's talk a little volleyball. They had an opportunity with a midweek game against Minnesota Duluth. I know we were talking about that last week as we were recording before that game happened. Had a chance to watch a little bit of that game, and my biggest takeaway, Ian, was just, it's 2 programs in 2 different places, right? Bemidji State's in year 1 of Coach Butte, trying to kind of rebuild the program back up. And Minnesota Duluth was ranked 16th in the country, and they're kind of in a program that just, again, in a different spot. Bemidji State hung in there for the first couple sets and made it close. And then that third set, UMD just kind of was able to run away with it. But it was just, Bemidji State would hang in there, but UMD would counter with a hit where they could get it to a spot that a Beaver couldn't quite get to, and things like that. And Bemidji State would get a good hit off, but UMD would find themselves in the right spot. And it just is, again, not for lack of trying, but it just felt like, 2 programs in 2 different spots. UMD's kind of been a machine, Bemidji State trying to rebuild back up, and that's how it's going to be. And then they also had 2 weekend games. So in that match against Minnesota Duluth, the Beavers lost in straight sets. They also lost in straight sets to Augustana and Wayne State. All of those games on the road over the weekend. Wayne State ranked 14th in the country, by the way, just again to show you how tough it is when you play volleyball in the NSIC. But taking a look at how things happened in Saturday's match against Wayne, coming away for the Beavers was Nevaeh Carlson with 9 kills. Grace Hofford had 8 kills. Ava Eichmann had 4 kills and a couple blocks. Lily Reese had 3 kills and a block as well. Taking a look at the game on Friday against Augustana. Again, that was in Augie. Nevaeh Carlson had 16 kills and a block. Ava Eighthman had 9 kills, 2 blocks, 2 aces. Grace Hofford had 4 blocks and 2 kills. And Kayla Gallagher had 2 kills and a block as well. Bemidji State didn't necessarily have the first set they wanted against Augustana. They lost that one 25-11, but then 25-23 was how the second and third sets went. So again, it's volleyball. It's a game of runs. It's a game of trying to manage things, and every point matters. And Bemidji State just unfortunately unable to come away with kind of the big victory when they need it. But now, Ian, they kind of look towards this weekend for homecoming.
Yeah, and they've got another or a big opportunity here coming up. It's, we talk all the time about how difficult of a schedule this is, especially for a team like Bemidji State, who's just trying to build a program and get their foundation under them. This 6-game stretch, this 3-week stretch, is going to be extremely important if you want to pick up a few wins here in conference play. You've got, I'll read it off in order: Minot State and UMary this weekend. Next weekend, a road trip to Jamestown and Northern State. Then you've got kind of a home and home at Moorhead, and then coming back home on Saturday against Crookston. Those 6 teams currently make up 6 of the bottom 7 teams in the conference. And of course, Bemidji State is unfortunately the other team in the bottom 7 in the conference, but that's like the bottom portion of the conference. I'm not saying the Beavers are going to go 6-0 in this stretch. That would be awesome. I would love it. But this is where you can pick up a bunch of wins. And, sometimes you get lucky and you double up on some of those bottom teams. The schedule makers. Schedule makers did not bless us this year. It's nothing but a gauntlet from there on out then. So try to pick up as many wins as you can, especially in the 6-game stretch. And then, you get 4 or 5 wins in this stretch, CJ. You got a little bit of momentum going into the back half. I'm not saying you're going to beat any team up there like SMSU or Duluth or whoever like that, but there's some teams in the middle of this conference that the Beavers definitely can play competitive against. We've seen them beat St. Cloud State in the past when they were ranked in the top 10, I believe, or maybe just the top 15-ish. But, this would be a great start to conference play to kind of get their, feet underneath them, for lack of a better term, and try to get back in the win column in this next 3 weeks. But it starts against Minot State and UMary, a couple of teams that the Beavers have had pretty good success against over the last few years, especially since we've started covering the team. 17-7 overall against the Minot State Beavers. In the last 10, they are 7-3.
They have a 7-game winning streak against Minot State.
Yeah, so let's keep that going. That would be pretty special, especially after what happened in football this last weekend against UMary. It is 20-14 all time. Again, the last 10 matchups, 7-3, including a current 3-game win streak against the Marauders. So, like I said, big opportunity to pick up some wins here, keep a couple of win streaks going against Minot State and UMary. I'm looking forward to it. These games start at 4 on Friday, and then I can't actually remember what time on Saturday. I actually just closed the tab, but
Saturday's game is 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Okay, so go to the BSU Gymnasium, watch that game, head over to the Chet, watch that game, go downtown after the game, get a bite to eat quick, hit back to the Chet on Saturday, or no. There are no soccer games on Saturday.
Soccer's on Sunday. Yeah.
So do whatever you want with the rest of your Saturday night. Watch the Beavers women's and men's hockey teams play, and then, wake up bright and early and get back to the Chet on Sunday for some more Beaver soccer action.
Exactly. It's as simple as that. Speaking of some other things going on with other Bemidji State sports, in women's golf earlier this week, Bemidji State took place in Marshall for women's golf as they competed at the Everspring Inn and Suites Mustang Invite. Sophomore Lauren Kamen carded 167 to lead the Beavers with a 10th place finish overall. So that is how things went for Bemidji State women's golf in their match. Men's golf did not compete. They will be in Oklahoma next week to try and golf in the Central Oklahoma's golf tournament that they are hosting. For cross country, again, we talked about their chance at the GRIAC, but they are running on Friday for the Jimmy Invitational in Jamestown, and that will be the last run of the regular season for the cross country team, as the cross country championships will take place in Wayne on October 24th. So it's always interesting for cross country that they have that. Again, you're running in Jamestown. That'll be pretty flat. But then you're also running your championships, which is a 6,000 meter race, which is also what the Jimmy Invitational will be. It'll be a 6K. You're running that south. So obviously the weather will be a little better than compared to late October in Minnesota. But then also it's in Wayne, Nebraska. So it's going to be very flat, which will, again, runners love flat conditions to kind of help them run, less resistance and all that stuff. So interesting note there for women's cross country. And that kind of turns, Ian, all eyes onto women's hockey. We talked about it was a very tough task against the number one team in the country in Wisconsin. And well, they look like the number one team in the country did Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was a tough weekend for the Beavers, unfortunately. In the battle of the is a badger a marsupial, or is
It's
it
a rodent for
is
sure.
It? Okay.
Yeah, a marsupial has a pouch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like a kangaroo is a marsupial.
Either way, it's a rodent-looking creature, even if it's not technically a rodent, which I do
Better
believe
dead
that
than
it
red,
is.
I always say, you know?
Right. But yeah, dude, I mean, this team is just nuts. I watched that game on Saturday. The size difference between these teams is immense. Like they talked about that on the broadcast on Fox 9 Plus, and it was just like, dude, Wisconsin's like first line is like 6 foot, 5'10", 6'1", like 5'11". The Beavers is like 5'1", 5'4", 5'2", 5'5", 5'2". It's like, man, this is tough. There's quite a disparity between these two teams, even still. And we've talked about, where we want Bemidji State to get. We're not trying to get to where Wisconsin is right now. Maybe someday, but we're going to start by trying to get up towards the middle of the conference and be more competitive against teams like St. Cloud State and Mankato. But yeah, it was a tough weekend. 2-9 loss on Friday, and then a 5-0 loss on Saturday. So a little bit better of a defensive effort, but sometimes those Saturday games, especially when Wisconsin had kind of already blown you out of the building, it's maybe they ease off the gas a little bit in that third period. But Beaver goals to report on. Maddie Kaiser scored a goal in the second period for the Beavers on Friday, assisted by Casey Senden and Carmen Bray. And then in the third period, Kate Johnson added an unassisted goal for the Beavers to make it a 7-2 hockey game before Wisconsin added a couple more later in the period for the final score of 9-2. Yeah, disappointing weekend, of course. You hope that you can keep the games a little bit closer, but it's the first weekend of the year and you've got a tall task on your plate. I'm not necessarily going to hold anything against them, against the reigning national champions. But this weekend coming up, a couple of home games against Robert Morris. You're staying at home. I'm not exactly sure how good Robert Morris is so far this year, how
They were a team that Bemidji State has competed with in the past when they've wound up on the schedule, which I'm guessing is why both of these teams kind of want to play each other. They've played a couple games as Robert Morris this season. They got a 6-2 win over Assumption last Friday, and then on Saturday got a 4-2 win as well. I am not sure where Assumption plays. I'm not even sure, to be honest, if they're division. Are they Division
I gotta
One?
be honest, I don't even know if that's a Division I school. I'll look it up quick.
They played in Moon Township, Pennsylvania at Clearview Arena for Robert Morris. So I believe that's home games for them. Yeah, it was a home game for Robert Morris. So that's where they played those games. 6-2, 4-2, those are the wins. And if you remember, these two teams did play, I believe it was a season ago, I believe it was kind of a tournament out in Pittsburgh where they were playing in that direction. It was either that or it was 2 years ago they played that. Bemidji State was able to get a win. Then if you remember last year, Bemidji State kind of set up the home and home with Robert Morris, and the Colonials were able to get a sweep over the Beavers 2-0 and 4-3 a year ago. So Bemidji State trying to get a little bit of revenge, trying to snap a 2-game skid against Robert Morris, and having home ice hopefully will be kind of the thing that sets them apart here.
Yeah, you're 9-5-1 all time against Robert Morris. But like CJ said, a 2-game losing streak currently going on for the Beavers against Robert Morris. Assumption is a Division I program. I don't know exactly what this conference is called. I'm just looking at the College Hockey News website right now, but
Sure.
there's a lot of teams in this conference that I'm very unfamiliar with. St. Anselm, Assumption, Franklin Pierce, Post, St. Michael's. So Stonehill, Sacred Heart, and Long Island are all in that conference with those teams. But yeah, I'm not.
It's a very
I'm not gonna lie.
Northeast hockey conference
Yeah,
sounding.
yeah.
Like all of those schools, like you're like, yeah, it's a women's hockey conference in the Northeast. And you're like, what are the schools? And you list all of them off and you're like, yep, that makes sense.
I had definitely heard of Assumption College before. I can't lie. Like I knew it wasn't like a, what is that you just said?
It was
out
ringing a
loud.
bell, but just not very
But
loudly.
it's hockey's weird, man. There's a lot of weird like schools that are Division I, like Colorado College is Division I, even though I can't remember if they're division. I think they're Division III and everything else. But yeah, it's odd. I can't say that I follow women's hockey on a national scale too close. I'm very familiar with the WCHA, but not much.
That's all that matters, really. I mean, just this conference just features a lot of winning hockey, so
Yeah,
it's hard
does.
it's hard to take your eyes off it when it's like, what do you mean? One of these teams in the conference is going to win the national title. It just depends on who. So, anyway, that's the WCHA supremacy that we just need to flex here. So, anyway, for women's hockey, just what are you looking for, Ian? Is it just kind of getting that offense back on track? Is it the goal? Is it kind of goaltending and defense? Obviously it's both. You want to win every game 11-0, but what's kind of what thing out of the two are you more interested in seeing the Beavers do this weekend?
I'm more interested in seeing if they can put up a bunch of goals against a team that isn't Wisconsin. They've got a little bit of a Robert Morris sandwich here with Wisconsin and Ohio State on either side of this weekend. So really take advantage of this weekend and see what you can do and get your offense going. Obviously, I don't want them to give up 9 goals. I mean, if they won a 10-9 hockey game, I'd be thrilled and excited, and I'm sure it would be awesome to watch. But at the end of the day, you want to do both, and you want to shore up your defense more, and you want to go out there and score goals. But at the end of the day, just try to split. And if nothing else, you got swept by Robert Morris last season, so try to go out and steal at least one of the games. I'm hoping for 2. I'd love to see a little bit of a step forward in Coach Fricklin's second year as head coach now of the Beavers women's hockey team. And this would be a great place to start, getting a sweep early in the season with some winnable games coming up, at the end of the month and in early November especially. So yeah, honestly, it's kind of a learning weekend. Some of these college sports, you really got to learn a lot early in the season is what's going to tell you a lot about the team that you're watching. And this is when we really find out exactly where the team is going to be at over this, first month or so stretch.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Beavers do and what the hockey program can do. Yeah, like you said, I think it'd just be very interesting to see if we can get that goal scoring rolling and see if we can find some offensive momentum. Because like you said, they got a 2-weekend road trip of at Ohio State, at Minnesota State, before they come back home to take on St. Thomas in early November. So this will be the last taste of home hockey here at the Sanford Center for a little bit. So you might as well go
over a month, because there is a couple weeks in between those games. They have games next weekend in Columbus, and then they don't play again until Halloween night. So I believe that's 2 weeks in between games early in the season. So, it's weird. I mean, I don't have anything wrong with, taking breaks in between games necessarily, but, why do we need to start the season in early September if we're just going to have a 2-week, sabbatical 3 weeks into the season? Maybe just wait a week to start the games.
It's giving them a bye,
Yeah. No, and then there's nothing wrong with that. Getting healthy, after a big test against Wisconsin and Ohio State to start the season, get your legs back underneath you.
Yeah, exactly. So, by the way, Friday's game, 6:02 puck drop at the Sanford Center, should go. 3:02 puck drop on Saturday. I mean, there's so much going on with homecoming, but if you don't want to go to the football game, you better be at the Sanford Center then. That's all I'll say regarding that.
Or you better be in Alaska.
Yeah. You making the trip?
No, unfortunately I'm not. That would be cool. I would love to. I mean, if I was at a different spot in my life, I mean, I probably would have, because especially it being October when this game and the series happens. Of course, we're talking about men's hockey now. That might be the last chance you would want to go to Anchorage, Alaska, before it starts getting really, really cold up there, I'm sure. So, yeah, but
yeah, it's speaking of WCHA, it's an old WCHA rivalry with the Beavs going up to Alaska. Ian set the stage for us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, Alaska Anchorage they're an independent team now. There's a lot of turnover year over year with that program. It's not Fairbanks. Fairbanks has been the more competitive of the two programs.
I was going to say, were they the one last year that kind of had the big run? Which one was the one that had?
2 years ago, Fairbanks was like probably a game away from making the tournament. I think they got pretty unlucky with conference tournaments. I think Colgate stole a bid with an auto bid and took a spot away from them. And I think that would have gotten them in, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, it was a little bit of a step back last year for Fairbanks still, but they're still more competitive than Anchorage has been. But you can't like the Beavers weren't very competitive either last year necessarily, outside of that 1 month stretch in like November, where they, kicked some ass. But
right. And by the way, that trip out to Alaska, as they'll tell you, cannot be understated. That is a jaunt.
Exactly.
You have to make to go out
and
there.
I think that, not to make excuses here, I'll make my weekly Chargers reference. I think travel is something that doesn't necessarily get talked about enough in sports. Like,
it's not Madden.
The Chargers played the Giants this week and they got embarrassed. And I should have seen it coming from a mile away, because every time they have to play, like, it's 10 a.m. local time for them when they kick off that game, even though it's 1 p.m. in New York or New Jersey. It's like every time they have to do that, they get squashed. And so I should have seen it coming. They just didn't look like they were actually awake for the game.
But hey, shout out to former Beaver Gunnar Olszewski returning.
I was hoping that he would at least do something cool, like Alex
Like
Insdorf covers the team. I retweeted it with the Beaver Banter account, but he posted the cat that's having the Vietnam flashbacks image on Twitter, and he said, seeing Gunnar Olszewski returning punts for the Giants. And so I retweeted that with the Beaver Banter account. But Gunnar had a quiet day, but unfortunately the Giants did not. But yeah, I mean, traveling out to Alaska, like you said, CJ, it's never an easy trip. It doesn't matter how bad either of these Alaska teams have been, even back to the WCHA days. If you make that Alaska trip, it's difficult. And there was a lot of times where the Beavers would make the trip out and they'd play back-to-back weekends against Alaska, and it would be over Christmas break. And so they would do something similar to what the Vikings are doing, and they would stay in Alaska, for the whole week rather than trying to, fly there and fly back. And I think that they were good back in the day, especially the WCHA. They would try to, if teams were going to have games,
they try to
set it up so that teams could do that, and they didn't have to, hey, the end of November you're playing in Fairbanks, and then in February you got to go back up and play against Anchorage, because this is college hockey programs we're talking about. And unless you're
there's limited travel budgets,
limited travel budgets for a lot of the teams, especially in that era of the WCHA. So yeah, it's going to be fun though. I mean, unfortunately, my work schedule, I know myself, and that 10 p.m. puck drop, if it's a good game, I'm probably not going to be a good adult and actually go to bed before the game is over. But I probably should. But yeah, 10 p.m. puck drop on Friday, 8 p.m. puck drop on Saturday. That's a little bit more manageable, a little bit more of what we're used to, even though sometimes Saturday's a little bit earlier puck drop in general. But I really don't know what to expect, CJ. This season is going to be so interesting for the Beavers. Normally we have Lucas Piepenhagen on of Beaver Territory to kind of give you a season preview. We didn't want to do that because I'll shout out the Reporters Corner with Jared Robato and Trent Singer. They're on the CCHA Podcast Network, and they had Lucas on, and they had Jack Hittinger on, somebody that we had on last year as well. They just did a season preview. So if you want to hear a little bit more of an in-depth season preview, go listen to that episode of the Reporters
The answers
Corner.
Lucas says would be the questions we ask him. So you'll get pretty much his answers.
Exactly. And we have so many new CHL kids coming in. It's just so much roster turnover. It feels like a new era of Beaver hockey. Like, there's kind of like big senior classes or big important players that leave the program. And it just feels like, it's like, well, okay, Now what's the identity? And it felt like that kind of shifted, like Jutting left, Matthias Scholl left. Like those are two
Eric
absolutely
Polkamp
massive.
left.
Eric Polkamp left a year ago. Kyle Loft is no longer on the team. So all of these guys that have been kind of staples of this, early COVID era and into late COVID era, Beaver hockey team are gone now. And so we have to kind of figure out, how are these CHL kids going to mesh? What's the difference going to be of playing against 16 to 18-year-old kids every night? Now you're coming and playing against 20 to 24-year-old kids every night in the CCHA. This is, again, it's a learning experience early in the season. You've got a lot of games that you're going to learn a lot about. Alaska Anchorage to kick off the season. Then you got St. Cloud State and Minnesota Duluth with a couple of home and homes. That's pretty par for the course from what we've seen from this team schedule-wise. And then, the CCHA as a whole is just going to be like wide open. Like I've listened to most of those Reporters Corner episodes where they previewed pretty much every team at this point. And the top like 6 or 7 teams in this conference are like, it's really hard to pick between some of them. Everybody
kind of have
to
wait until like Christmas before you have any idea of what's going on.
And even then, I mean, a couple of years ago, it's like, who the hell's going to get home ice? We could have the 7th place team is still fighting for home ice coming down to the last weekend. And there's going to be so much parity in the league this year. And it depends, like, not to just steal too much from that show, but the things that I've learned from it, Bowling Green has a ton of CHL kids coming in, just like BSU does. They probably even have more, I believe. Dennis Williams has a massive CHL background, so it's maybe not too surprising to see him dip his toes into that pool. But their seasons are wildly going to depend on how those CHL kids adapt to the NCAA hockey game. And if it goes well, those teams could be fighting for home ice and maybe even a McNaughton Cup come the end of the season. If it doesn't go well, the Beavers could very well be back down in 7th or 8th place by the end of the season. So there's so much variance in what I think could happen this year. I just want to take these first 3 weeks and really feel out what I think this team is going to be. And then even then, you really can't tell, because the last 2 seasons, the Beavers did terribly in non-conference play and then won the McNaughton Cup. And last year they did great in non-conference play and they finished 7th in the CCHA. So non-conference really can't tell us all that much about this team, unfortunately. You just got to take it week by week with this Sartori-led squad.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, there's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of new things that you're going to have to figure out. And the biggest thing will be time, right? Like, we can't overreact if Bemidji State gets swept. We can't be like, oh no, it's all going to be terrible. The season's bad. And if they get a sweep, I mean, we'll come on here and we'll be pretty proud. Don't get me wrong. But like, everything's got to wait a little bit. You got to give these guys time to gel. You got to give it a little bit of kind of a grace period to see how things fall into place. And then, kind of as we always talk about, once you get it into the new year, that's when things are like, okay, like we actually start to need to see some things here and there. But overall, Ian, just one more time, I know we mentioned this a little bit earlier in the a few weeks ago as the team officially announced their entire roster, but just walk us back to speed. Start things off again. Why is this team looking so different? What's the big deal about all the new players they brought in? Just kind of quickly, the Cliff Notes version. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, I mean, they brought in a couple of players this year that, have pro hockey experience. I believe it's Hudson Thornton that had some. Yeah, he played in the ECHL for the Orlando Solar Bears last year. That's a professional hockey organization, and he's now coming down here and playing with Bemidji State. So it's shocking to see some of these names come in. There's one other that I can't remember exactly which one it is that had other experience in doing that. And it's just such a unique, a lot of these guys that are coming in and like Hudson Thornton, like I said, he's a sophomore. It's his first year playing for BSU, but I believe he has some U Sports background as well, playing in Canada. So he lost a year of eligibility doing that. You look at Vincent LaBelle, he played U Sports for a couple of years up in Ottawa and or in Ontario, and he's coming in as a junior. You got many people. I think McLennan. Maybe it was McLennan. He's coming in as a junior as well. U Sports Alberta. Like all these players, I'm rambling on and looking at the roster here because I thought I knew who was on this team until a month ago when they announced all these new team, players. It's confusing. It's hard to wrap your head around it all. But I do think that the Beavers are going to be pretty good. I think if they can figure out early in the season what lines pair well together, there's just so many new names on this team that it's going to take a while, I think, to really figure out exactly what players mesh and where they fit on the line chart necessarily, because there's so many forwards now, even after losing quite a few last year. It's just going to take some time, I think, to figure out exactly what the best line combinations are. And, last year we got down to the end of the season. We still weren't sure if we knew exactly what players meshed well together. So it's going to take some time. It's an ever-changing, college landscape. It's
and part of it was a new ruling, right, that allowed this to happen, right? It was like a new rule change that allowed Bemidji State to grab some of these players with a little bit of professional experience.
Yes. Yeah. The CHL players are now eligible to be, recruited and join into the NCAA sphere, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And that creates a lot of, at first you're like, all right, that makes sense. Cool. It opens up the player pool a lot. It's going to help teams in the CCHA, I think, especially. And now you've got players coming in, and there's several players now on several different teams that have pro hockey experience that played on a contract. Now, I don't know what exactly, maybe they weren't on a full contract. I have no idea how they could possibly be eligible. Maybe we'll talk to Jared. Maybe Jared knows a little bit later this season. We'll have him on and see if we can pick his brain about how in the world this is actually allowed. But yeah, right. I'm excited, as I always am. New goaltender coming in, Max Hildebrand.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah, who's starting in net for the Beavers this year? Because it's a new goalie room.
If I had to put money on it, man, I would be very willing to put a parlay down that Rathan Robbins starts on Friday in the season opener, and Max Hildebrand starts on Saturday against UAA.
By the way, where is Rathan Robbins from? Anchorage,
Alaska. Rathan Robbins is from Anchorage, Alaska. So that's, maybe he does get both games just because of that. So maybe I wouldn't actually put any money down on it. But I do think that they're probably going to go every other game with these two. Maybe they give Robbins the benefit of the doubt and they give him more games early in the season. But I just think Hildebrand is probably too talented of a goalie. He won WHL Goalie of the Year last year. I just think that you're going to give him games right from the jump. And it's probably going to be like all year, unless he's just clearly that much better than Weemkin, or not Weemkin. I was just looking at Trent on the website. Unless he's that much better than Rathan, he's probably going to be splitting most of the time here in his freshman season. But yeah, very interested to see all around. They have 3 right shot defenders on the roster this year, CJ. That's the biggest shock. Like, they only had Issa Parek last year, and now they have 3 of them. So that's going to be a big help for special teams. And we'll see if we have, I think Tom Saratori was quoted saying they have like 8 people that they're comfortable playing center. Like, and that of course doesn't mean that they have 8 centermen. They just have 8 people that they're comfortable playing center. It's like, well, okay. Well, can they win a face-off? That's really all I care about.
That's kind of the important thing. Yeah. So, by the way, like you said, Rathan Robbins from Anchorage, Alaska, played in the USHL at Muskegon, and then also talking about Hildebrand as a freshman, played starting in Martinsville, Saskatchewan. That's where he's from. Played in the WHL for Prince Albert. So be interesting to see how things go in the post-Scholl era. And here we go. The other thing, Ian, we talked a lot about the newcomers. But as we wrap up, I want to tell you one returning member that you are excited about the most on this team.
It's got to be Riley Funk. A lot of people that listen to the show might have thought I was going to say Kirkland Irie, right off the bat. He's the captain, somebody that I've, been a fan of for his entire career here. But Riley Funk was just phenomenal last year. He's, transferred from a couple of years ago from Northern Michigan, and he came in and made an instant impact. He's huge on the ice, and he skates like he's, 5'11", like, just one of those little quick guys out there. But I'm really excited to see what he can do. Also, we got to bring up Max Vig. I believe he was the only player in the CCHA that was drafted in this last year's NHL draft. So another draft pick for the Beavers.
Who has his
Left-hand
rights?
defenseman. I think it's Montreal, but I could be wrong about that.
I'll look it up. Yep, Montreal.
Yep.
Montreal.
Yeah, I think he was a later round draft pick for Montreal. But hey, the last defenseman that was drafted that came to the Beavers was pretty good, even if it was only for a year, and he helped us lift some hardware. So yeah, but yeah, probably to answer your question, Riley Funk is definitely one. And then yeah, I mean, Issa Parek, Riley Funk, and Kirkland Irie are my three biggest returning players to watch for this season for the Beavers.
Yeah, it feels like a completely different team because you mentioned those guys, and then of course there's your Vince Cochrans and a couple other guys where it's like, oh yeah, Jackson Panzer's like, I remember you guys.
Well, Mang's still hanging around,
Right. There's a few. It's like, I remember you, but then you're going through the roster and you're like, wait a second, who are you people? So it'll be really fun to get to know this team and see how these lines progress and see if that added experience and things like that help out a Beaver hockey team. So Ian, give me your weekend prediction for the Beavers. I'm going to say because of the Alaska road trip, because of things like that, because of the new team, I'm going to say maybe a split is kind of where I'm setting expectations at. But what do you think this team is going to do?
I think the Beavers can come out and shock some people. I do think that the Alaska tax is going to be taken. That game on Friday night is like really late at night. I think that game ends in a tie. I think we have a very competitive 3-3 tie. Goes into overtime and neither team can find a winner. And then I think the Beavers end up pulling out a victory on Saturday, probably 4-1, after they're done playing with their food and they've kind of adjusted a little bit more to that Alaska time zone is what I'll say.
Yep. So either way, the Beavs will roll. That's all that matters. Happy homecoming. We'll talk about it all on next week's show. Follow Beaver Banter on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. We'll be giving some updates throughout the next week and over the weekend while we're doing some homecoming stuff. So be sure to stay glued on that. Ian, join the Discord, right?
Absolutely join the Discord. We got to get the old hockey game.
For a second, my screen might have froze, but Beaver Banter Discord as well. Be something good to join, especially with hockey season coming up. Ian's going to have that thing rolling. So as that's all moving and going up. Okay, there you're back, Ian. With hockey season coming up, right? Good time to join the Discord.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, great time to join the Discord. We'll have our, live game threads going again coming up this weekend. It'll be a late night. Join up. We'll all be there for it. It's super fun.
And by the way, you can watch these games on YouTube, correct?
Yes. Great note. If you haven't gotten your Midco Sports subscription now, if you're going to do the annual one, do it before this weekend because it's very much cheaper. I believe it's only $8.99 a month compared to $24.99 a month for the annual subscription. So if you do that before Friday, but you won't need it for this Friday and Saturday because these games are streamed for free on YouTube. That's what you get. You have to stay up a little later for it, but they are free to watch on YouTube.
We'll take it. It's the Beaver Banter podcast. We'll see you next week. Want to thank again our sponsors, the Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. Ian, you want to give them a quick shout out before we hit the road?
Yeah, we'll get out of here with a little bit of an ad read. Do you want to be a part of the team behind the teams at Bemidji State? Join hundreds of dedicated fans when you donate to Beaver Athletics and help BSU pursue its next championship. Your gift can power your favorite program, establish a scholarship for a student athlete you get to meet, and so much more. Every dollar brings the Beavers closer to raising another trophy. You can add to the proud tradition of success at Bemidji State, so don't wait. Give today at bsualumni.org/Beavers. That's bsualumni.org/BEAVERS.
We'll see you next week.